Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Here's the Webster Report with Paul the Gasman Webster.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Webster Report. On this, I think it's the 20th of October 2024 we're at now. This year's gone really quick again. Been getting a lot of good feedback again. I met up with a guy just this week who says that he believes that the podcast helps a lot of people. It's helping him grow, and it's just general conversation. It's honest conversation about real issues that's going on. It's just we've got to get these conversations going. There's so much going on, but you know, City won today, Liverpool won today. So nothing's wrong, is it, for a lot of people? They're not feeling the pinch. Yet we're hearing reports coming from America that Donald Trump's saying that there should be a strike on Iran now on their nuclear facilities. So they're talking about moving military against Iran. Iran, Iraq and Israel are all fighting. This is now starting. It's almost like watching prophecy play out. But again, people don't associate it with these things. But you've got all these other distractions going on as well. You know, we've got the P. Diddy stuff that's still ongoing, that they're all going to start grassing each other up and this, that and the other. So we'll all watch that show because we don't realise what's going on in the backgrounds, but possible nuclear strike. We've got Kamala Harris who goes for an interview and she's asked some questions and all she talks about is, well, Donald Trump's been running. And it doesn't make any sense. None of the interviews do. So it's like we're watching not even B-movie actors playing not even B-movie roles, and people are saying, well, this is real life because it's on the telly, it's mainstream media. You know, but we've got to start talking about common sense. If you look over at, even in Scotland now, we've already spoke about it on the show, that there's teenagers being identifying as wolves, and it's being facilitated. This is facilitating mental health issues. We can't keep doing this. I've said before, my daughter wanted to be Pikachu. I couldn't have facilitated that. It would have been ridiculous. But nowadays, I don't know where you'd go with that. I've published an article out today that the Peruvian government have officially said that transgenders they're being classed as mental health issues. So they're going to get people to speak to. You know, instead of like being able to go on puberty blockers and have things cut off, let's have a chat about it first. You know, it's only common sense, this. Another distraction, what everybody's been talking about this week, is we've got a German England manager. You know, people are moaning about it. We had an Irish England manager still in the job at the minute. What does it matter? I get the traditions, but there's more important stuff going on. But again, it's those distractions, those little lifts out of the doldrums of people not being able to afford to live properly. But a bit of football, and it's for 90 minutes that it just goes away. I remember 30 years ago when I used to play football, it didn't matter how many arguments I'd had at home. As soon as I crossed that white line on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, for 90 minutes, all it was football. So I get the distractions. But again, this podcast is about having honest conversations. I'm not saying you can't do all these things, but, you know, your families, it's going to start encroaching on your family now. We've got Storm Ashley, we've got flooding, we've got Hezbollah the leader of Hezbollah being killed, the leader of Hamas being killed. Trump saying we're going to bomb, we should target Iran. We've got all this stuff going on, but it's not really affecting anybody. Every day I go out and people just don't see this that's going on. We've got the wars, we've got the rumours of wars, we've got America in chaos with the floods and everything. Australia's going through their own stuff now. We've got to start really saying, is there anything we can do? Because I'm convinced if we start paying these ULEZ and these climate charges, I'm still convinced I don't think we'll fix the weather. I think we're still going to have these issues. So anyway, there's a little slight change to the show tonight because Alex is still feeling a little bit under the weather. He's looking to hopefully come on later, round about 9 o'clock. But we'll see if Alex shows up. But at very short notice, I managed to get somebody to come in who can more than fill Alex's shoes with his intellect and his wit. James, how are you?
Oh, hello. Hang on. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I
Alex.
was just sharing the thing on my personal page. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, James. What have you been up to?
Well, I'm in therapy at the moment, so it's bringing a lot of stuff out the cupboards. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster week emotionally. But there's something I want to talk about, if that's all right with you. And I don't want to be fancy and clever like Alex, because I'm not up there in the quote. Something about Nietzsche is society has domesticated society has tamed the wolf into a dog, and man is the most domesticated animal of all. And now, what made me think of this was I saw a post yesterday, and I don't often share posts as such. I even shared it on my Joker page, and it was over hundreds of years, man has developed the ability to hunt, to prepare his own food, grow vegetables, build shelter, make clothes, repair those clothes. And in the last 2 generations, we've lost all that. Now God is Tesco. If you plonk your average person into a forest and say, right, you have to kind of survive now, they'd be screwed. I'm not swearing, by the way. I hope you appreciate that. And
I've been waiting, mate. You're doing well.
I think it started with our generation, with the subtle introduction of video games. Because when my dad was in the garden growing turnips or whatever, I was in here on an Atari, and so I think that was the slow introduction of our addiction to technology. Have you any thoughts on this?
Well, I've told you my story, Jim. I had all the latest games that come out, the latest toys, the bikes. I was doing all that. I weren't interested. My dad was like fixing engines. I could have been under the car bonnet with him and stuff like that. Wasn't until I was just getting to that 15-year-old I was starting to take interest in cars and stuff like that. So I know me and my dad, obviously he was killed a year later, but me and my dad would have had a better bond from that. But you're right. I'd come home from school, he'd get up and go to work. And then on a Saturday, I'd be out playing football with my mates. So it was, you miss out on so much. It's only later when you get to an age where, even your own kids don't want to come round and see you at times. So you know what your mum and dad felt like when you didn't want to go and do that. We take so much stuff for granted. And I think you were right, that era from the 70s, because I always say, after 2 world wars and an education system, that was the downfall of society right there. Then you had the influence of music. I think we spoke last time, didn't we, Jim, about how music can affect the psyche of somebody like that, whereas therapy could take weeks to help, but a piece of music can change you like that. So you had all this new music, you had Elvis shaking his hips and women fainting everywhere. And then you had the drugs scene coming in the 60s, and the Beatles were teenage girls were fainting and throwing themselves and screaming, which is a phenomena that is just brand new, because my mum liked the Beatles. I went, did you used to do that, man? She went, did I bloody hell do that? So I couldn't get my head around it. But then we're getting to the 70s and we're born into this, yeah, whatever. What's it all about? You know, and it's free love and this, that, and the other. And then you get into the 80s, Jim, and it was just a little bit bonkers in the 80s, wasn't it?
Well, do you know what? Regarding music, yeah, music has been a great tool of division, probably from Elvis, and it has created a generation gap. And punk is lauded as like opening the doors for people, but it wasn't really. Punk was just another extension of divide and conquer. Really, it really put a big chasm between older people and younger people, and the initial punks were quite scary. You had these gangs of like people with pink hair, and like it was quite a terrifying. The thing is, people don't realise, if punk was a genuine danger to the status quo, it would have been stamped on. Like anything, any person, as we know, Paul, or anybody who rocks the boat, I can vouch for that. It gets tucked away. So the fact that they signed to EMI, one of the biggest labels at the time, just tells you that they're like, oh, we can use this in part of the agenda, you know. And that's all. It isn't. And Johnny Rotten turned out to be the biggest fraud ever. He was anti-establishment, and then when he's 55, he's selling butter. You know what I mean? But then justifying it, and I'm only doing it because it's grass. I don't know what he said, but you know what I mean. They're just all frauds, and it's all theatre. But I do. You're right. One of the ways we are all going to become unstuck is if we don't start kind of learning how to be self-sufficient, because one day, as we know, we're going to hear on the news, oh, there's no food in Tesco's. Oh, sorry, and then what are we going to do? We've all become dependent, and it's only in the last 2 decades, and it's the fact that they've planned this. You've got to take your hat off to them. It's genius. The slow drip of how they did this, and you know, and now we're coming to the pushing for the grand finale. You know, the pushing for the end game. But I don't know. Have they overreached themselves? I don't know. It's quite a scary time if you kind of let it be, you know, because we all know politics is theatre. I mean, you and me, and perhaps half of these people watching, knew when Keir Starmer coming. It wasn't going to be the Labour Party of the 1960s with free school milk and all that. This fully paid up member of the WEF called Sir, who let Savile off and grooming gangs, comes in and he's fucking butchered everybody. You know what I mean? Sorry.
The ones who voted for Keir Starmer, they're now turning on Starmer because of what the Labour Party are doing. So they want him out, Jim. But they've got 4 years of the Labour manifesto. It doesn't matter what face we're looking at. It's still going to be the same agenda. You've given them 4 years. So if you now protest that, Jim, a protest is just a legal acceptance. So you'll go and organise a protest and wave your flags, and they'll just go, right, now you've done that, bang, it's done. You're allowed to protest, but somehow we've got to reject. We're not getting remedy in courts, so the alternative would be then force some kind of a civil unrest. That's what they're prepared for. That's why we shouldn't give it them. We should be able to go into courts en masse and try and lock these courts up and hold them to account. But they know we can't organise. As soon as we start to organise, we start arguing with each other, and you don't get anywhere, Jim. This is why it's been frustrating. For the last 18 months, I've seen people trying to use stuff that people didn't work 10 years ago, and because now people are panicking, they've followed somebody, they've got themselves into trouble. Some people have said, oh, well, I've told them I've moved out. What do I do now? Well, where do you start? You know, you've told them you moved out. Yeah. Well, you've not though. No. So you're committing a kind of a fraud. Yeah, but they're committing fraud. I went, so two wrongs now make a right. If you're going to stand in a courtroom and do that, you know, you've got to be able to know how to go about this. And there's people that know how to go about it, but if people are going in on their own, they're going to get shot down, Jim. They need numbers. You know, it's a scary place when you stood in a courtroom against multi-billion-pound companies and banks and stuff like that. It's not an easy place to go. It's a different kind of battle, different kind of stress, different kind of war.
Absolutely. How do you think the American elections are going to play out rather? Is Trump going to be like? Are they going to pull out the dirty tricks? Will Trump not get in?
Well, anything can happen, can't it? I mean, if you vote for Kamala Harris, knowing the track record that she's got, seeing that she can't string two sentences together, she gets mixed up when the teleprompter goes, she can't speak. If she gets in again, anybody who thinks that the elections are fair, I don't know what, you know, how do you explain that to people? You know, Joe Biden couldn't run a bath, yet people voted for him. It's baffling, Jim. If you ask Taylor in the chat room, Taylor will tell you that it's all sorted. That Trump from the military took over on the 6th of January. So we don't know. Exactly what you said earlier, Jim. That we're watching this movie, and I don't know what part we're up to at the film. It's not a great film, though. Not a great script, is it?
Like most other films you watch now, they're all really badly written and badly just made. But yeah, it's very strange. And what do you think?
There's a film you watched that the other week, and I thought, what's that all about? And I looked at the trailer, and I thought, okay, well, we'll watch that this weekend. So I put it on, and it was that Terrifier 3, Jim. It's the worst film. I turned it off after 20 minutes because it's the worst bloody film I've ever seen in my life. It was just gratuitous murder and violence. That was all it was about. There was no storyline.
My friend is a filmmaker, and he's in talks with people in America. I won't mention his name because it's not my right to do that. But he's right in what he says. Most films that come out now are badly made, they're badly written, they're badly produced, and one of the main reasons is DEI. Is it diversion, equity, and inclusivity?
Yes.
Script writers in Hollywood have been hired not on the creative genius and the talent. Oh, he's black, he's trans, he's non-binary. Just get them in and get them write something, and then so on that business basis alone, they've been putting films out, and Disney's lost billions, and a lot of the studios have lost billions through woke. And as you might know yourself, there seems to be a slight backlash to woke coming now. Where Audi have got rid of woke, Toyota have said we're not doing it anymore. So then for them two massive companies to do that is something
shifting, isn't it?
Because basically that's a big risk they've took. You know what I mean? But I suppose they looked at Budweiser when they had that Dylan Mulvaney, that trans person, advertising it, and the Budweiser is still reeling from that. They've lost. I don't know how much they've lost. Is it billions, millions? I don't know. But
easy.
People are getting sick.
But look at what they've done to Star Wars, mate. They've made it gay for the sake of it. You've got lesbians now that use the Force to get pregnant, and you've got a transgender stormtrooper called Sister. What happened to Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and a storyline?
I think, Paul, you'll find it's their Solo now. You know what I mean? It'll be their Solo and the flying dildo, rainbow-coloured dildo going around the galaxy, you know. But,
the new dildo ray gun that a planet blower upper. I just can't get it. It's
but as well, why films have gone quite bad is it's the TikTok generation where people now are used to watching badly filmed rubbish. Where people now, especially from a young age, are watching these reels of rubbish. So the studios have cottoned on, and the films have not become masterpieces. They become content. Studios are just knocking content out. Is it all right? It'll do. And they're just throwing stuff out for the sake of it. And for a while now, the standard of entertainment. I remember my father. It's been passed away 7 years. My father was sat watching television and said, "This rubbish." He says 20 years ago. I forget what it was. Some entertainment show. He says 20 years ago. He said they wouldn't have accepted this for entertainment. And now people have just, they're almost becoming like children in a lot of ways in what they'll watch and what they'll accept, and how they. We never thought when the big kind of what do we call it now, the thing that happened a few years ago, the common cold, that thing. I don't want to get the channel in trouble.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
None of us ever dreamed that everybody would capitulate and roll over in such a fashion. And I think even them in charge, I think they must have just gone, huh? Is that easy? It was that easy. You know, they can't have even dreamed it. But now people will just watch rubbish. Like I said, in its base level, I'm not saying like a pensioner here, but even the music kids are listening to is almost pornographic. The videos, there's satanic imagery in them. You know, it's not even conspiracy. It's in your face. All films have become darker, and you see, it's terrifying. It's the biggest pile of crap. I've not seen the number 3, but I put it on here, the number 1, and I got about 3 minutes in, and the tomato ketchup everywhere, and you think, no, I can't sit through this. It's just shit.
That was exactly what it was. I just thought, but that one is now the number 1 at the box office in the States. People fainted watching it. Apparently, you know.
You know what? I think there's a lot of hype. Now, if you wind us back to 1970s and The Exorcist, and that was a genuinely shocking film. You know, all right, I get it's obviously toying with demonic.
It was new though, wasn't it? It was like Jaws. You weren't going to replicate what Jaws did to people in cinemas.
And that's where we're at now. People will just accept anything as entertainment, and people will, I think, basically, people will put up with anything, full stop. And it's like, we will in this country, as in America. I think in the Colombian companies, they would be riot if the governments did things they were happy with. They'd vocalize it and they'd make it known. They wouldn't just go over and put a Facebook status after they've had the tea about God. Can't believe I pay more electric now. Lol. You know what I mean? And get loads of like love hearts emojis, and that's how people I know. And they're armchair revolutions via status. Can't believe that, you know. Can't believe they're building a death camp right corner. All their parents have to put away. Oh God.
And you just started off with, "I've had enough."
It's
true. Everybody's, why? What's wrong? What's wrong?
Inbox me, hon. You know, what I mean? And all this kind of thing. But yeah, it's a very strange. It's a very strange time, and you know, we're going to watch it play out.
Islamic State says, ask Jimmy to bring Peter Boothroyd back.
I'm not even answering that, Webby. It's just, you know, that's not even what we're talking about, is it? You know what I mean? Yeah. So what's your thoughts on things then?
Again, it comes down to having these conversations. I mean, I'm in the local shop the other day. They started to talk about something. We all got into a conversation, and they joined dots from just information. You didn't have to tell them anything. You know, people aren't stupid. They're just not privy to the new information. They're either just off mainstream media, which you trust. I mean, my mum thought she was really informed because she watched the BBC and ITV News. She had the Daily Mail, the Independent, newspapers and the Times, not rags, mate. These were all high quality media that she was informed, and she just wasn't, Jim. It was sickening to see just how much programming that my mum and my dad had received. Never mind the programming that then was passed on to me.
Yeah,
You know, we go through all this life, and all I said was, right, I need all the information about everything that I can get, so I can at least start to discern what's real and what's not again. And it started with those bills. And if I found out that this world was what it is, and you see what's behind this world, we've talked about these dark shadows, these evil entities, this evil energy that's surrounding all the entertainment system, all politics, and it's all being driven through Europe now with the WEF for this one world government, this one world religion, and according to prophecy, that you will take this religion or you'll die. It's not. There's nothing new here, but we've not got to the point where people can actually see that yet. When I saw the difference in between those messages, that gospel message, which is so simple, it's so simple and so unique. The only way that we can be saved is somebody's fulfilled that law for us. And there's no man that could do it. So if it isn't true, we're all knackered, mate. Because it just comes down to that. We can't do this ourselves. It doesn't matter how many people say it. I go off that scripture because it's the prophecies that have been fulfilled, which is over 300 by this one entity, one man, one God, fulfilled all the odds on it was something like 17th to the power of, and I don't know how many notes that is because I'm crap at maths. So what it comes down to, Jim, is be humble. Where do you know that is bullshit from? Why do you base it on that? Because when I said your gas was free, you're a knobhead. Why have you read this? No, I've got a life. It's about being humble. If you're trying to tell people that they're wrong and you haven't even read some of that information, then you've got entitled to your opinion, but that's all it is. I don't care what you believe if you can't, if it's completely different to what I'm looking at. You're saying that you're looking at the same stuff, but it's different to what I'm looking at. That gyro, you can't go any wrong with it, Jim. It does what it says. That's it. Mm-hmm. So if you can't see what's going on now, and people know there's something wrong, Jimmy, everybody's talking about something being wrong, but then it's the shrug of the shoulders. Well, what can you do? Well, that's where they love us being, Jimmy. They want us either sat on a bench, sticking something in our arm, go in the pub, or working so bloody hard that you've got no hours to think about anything, and you finish work, you want a pint, you want a bit of football, and you want to go to bed, and you start it all over again because you've got to save up for that holiday, and your mortgage has just gone up, and this has gone up.
Yeah.
It's word, because that's not going to slow down. So that means the wheels have got to start falling off people's wagons before they even realise, and sometimes that can be too late, because when we look back to World War II, they didn't just come after everybody all at once. They started to pick people out. Well, what's happening? So that's what this podcast is meant to be about. Me and Alex said that even if there's just us two here, we'd sit and we'd have some real conversations, and if people want to come on and tell us their versions of stuff and what their information is, because information is information, and I want it all, because if I've only got a certain amount of information about something, I might be missing something. That's common sense, isn't it, Jimmy?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things you're up against is cognitive dissonance. So when you say your gas is free, you just go, oh! I mean, for example, I put that post up about how people back in the day were really self-sufficient. And there was quite a backlash. What do you want about? Kids today have got tablets. Kids today don't have worked out minds. And there was one complete dingbat who said, what do you want about? Food can cure any illness. You need Big Pharma. You need your tablets. And you're like, for fuck's sake. What, And this is what you're up against. And but like, what are you on about? You know, kids back in the day, kids had no shoes, and now they've got Nike shoes, and now they've all got iPhones, and you know what I mean. Now they just sit around getting heart disease at 9 years old and don't know whether they're men or women, and some of them are wolves.
It's like that. It's like that Monty Python sketch, isn't it? The Real Yorkshireman, where they're going, a box? You lived in a box? Luxury. Luxury. We lived in the gutter with a bit of newspaper. Newspaper? Oh my word! You know,
it's what you're up. It's quite frustrating, really. I mean, there's nothing you can do. So I mean, it's the old adage about leading a horse to water. Only when they're ready to. Some people will never switch on. I don't want to use the term walk or awake because they're too kind of like misconstrued now. But some people will not switch on to what's happening ever. It's not in their kind of karma or whatever you want to call it. But that's frustrating for the people who like. It's like you're pointing to somebody. There's a cliff edge there, and it's like lemmings, and some people and like with the jibber jabber or whatever, and all that kind of thing. The amount of people, I'm sure you told, and the people I told, oh well, I won't go to Tenerife. You know, I mean, my mum says if I can't come round for Christmas dinner unless, you know what I mean, and a lot of parents were dragged, like grown up people were being dragged by the parents to say them, you've got to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's.
I think I've had a fair few who's come to me and said they wish they'd not had it done.
What?
They regret it. They regret it, and they're not having any more. But something's ruined, Jim, and I don't have faith in people at all.
No,
because I saw what they did. I mean, I met up with an old mate on Sunday, and we were talking about. He said he was in Tesco's when they had the one-way system with the traffic lights before you could go in, and he said, I was going down this aisle, and I was had to go down this aisle to come back up because it was corned off there, so I couldn't go that way. But all I had to do was just reach over the barrier and pick up what I wanted. And this woman come running up to him, shouting at him, saying, you've got to go round, you've got to go round. And she wanted him to lean back over, put it back on the shelf and walk round. And you're going, it's in my hand, love. Yes, but you can't do that.
You know what? Sorry, I cut over then. The most, what can I say? What's the word I'm looking for? The most intense reaction I had was at Lancaster Services during all that, and there was an inroad, an indoor, and an outdoor, and I went in through the outdoor. Sounds like a Led Zeppelin album with no mask on, and this fella in orange overall said, "What are you doing, you wanker?" And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like basically you've gone through a door, and it's like you smashed the temple up. You know what I mean? Kind of, and it's like, and some woman in Costa was like, I remember I was stood like 2 inches too close to her, and do you mind? You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous. Isn't it?
It was absolutely mad, mate. It was absolutely mad.
I mean, looking back now, Webby, if that happened now, and we was all like dogs outside Tesco sitting there thinking, I would probably just barge in now and say, do what you want, love, phone police. You know what I mean? It's just, we just all fell for that hook, line and sinker, didn't it? It was a mad time in history, though, but I've never seen skies as blue, Webby.
No, me neither.
Ever.
No, that was commented on quite a bit, that, for some reason.
You know.
But it was lovely and hot. We had a great summer. People were paid to stay at home in the jacuzzis and that. So there was no issues. But while they're at home in the jacuzzis, all the middle-class businesses are being shut down. Pubs are being shut down because you can't go in there without masks on and all kinds. And I think what you found was it wasn't just the people who would go and do the jabs. And it's not just the people who would enforce against each other, but it was the people who wear the masks but put them under the chin.
Yeah.
You know,
I saw something amazing in Wigan Lidl. I've got a picture of it. I'll send it to you. It was an old fella, and he had a mask on, and he had all that blue toilet roll hanging down from his mask. He had like a beard of toilet. He looked like a Jim Henson kind of Muppet from the chin down kind of thing. And it's one of them. But you know, you're more switched on than me, and we know that everything they do, they don't do nothing by accident. Everything is by design. Here's my theory, right? Now, every town centre is getting inundated with junkies, and they're starting to become very open about what they do. Now, bearing in mind, would you say they actually want the death of the high street ultimately?
Yeah.
Well, do you think this is not kind of part of a plan where they make the town centres such an unpleasant experience that people start not avoiding them? They perhaps go to retail parks or shopping online. That's right. I think they could start that out in 2 minutes, getting a couple of wardens or whatever. Or initially, a few years ago, they had this kind of, there was things on lampposts and it's saying, yeah, this is a special cordoned off area. Homeless or beggars can't come in this area. And now it's like, come on, come in. And like they're in alleyways where all people are walking through or whoever, and they're shooting up. And it's horrific. A lot of people I know won't go to the town centres now.
No.
But I made a video about Wigan, and the amount of comments underneath, it's like this in Bradford, it's like this in Preston, it's like this in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it's worldwide. It's quite scary. It's becoming post-apocalyptic. It's almost becoming like these Hollywood films showed us years ago about streets full of like zombies and things.
Well, that's what makes it even more strange when you hear like Amazon has taken out insurance against the zombie apocalypse. You know, you think that's a joke, but it's actually a policy. So what are they expecting? In case you can't get your new headphones delivered because of a pending zombie apocalypse, or they just can't get into your house because you've got 3 dead walkers banging on your door, growling at you. You know, I'll bring your headphones next week, Jim.
Yeah.
But this is what they do. They put stuff in legislation and say we're not using it. The climate, the Energy Act bill, that's got police powers, legislative powers to police can red key doors so that people can have smart meters fitted. Oh, but we're not using it. It's in the legislation, so it's there and it's going to be used. You've now got the leadership of the police. The best part of them are going to be university graduates who've never even lived yet.
No,
you know, they're doing it with the prison service. They're doing it with all of them. They're just collapsing everything, Jim, and they're squeezing every last penny out of this economy before it goes. And the problem that you'll have is that the mass majority of people believe that you've got to pay bills. So the mass majority of people are going to accept the debt because we can't afford it. So they're going to come up with a solution that's going to be okay for everybody. You know, and it'll just be, well, here's your vouchers. You can buy this at that shop. You can buy that. Well, I need some fags. Oh, no, you can't buy fags. Well, I need some beers. No, you can't buy some beers because these vouchers don't let you buy that. It's all about control. So the farm, the open farm that we've all been brought up on is now becoming battery.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good term, really. You know, it really is a good term.
Well, you asked me about Lee. Lee's the same, mate. You know, we've gone from having, you know, gone from having butchers, from C&A to Marks and Spencers to Burton's to all these shops, electric shops, you know, all these things where everybody can have choices. But now we've got vape shops, barbers, charity shops, and, you know, any other businesses, they're starting to go because people just can't afford it. Pubs are being shut left, right and centre. Once the pubs are gone, where else are they going to meet? Because, as you said, they go meet in the town centre, maybe go to the pub and have something to eat or go somewhere else. But there's nowhere to go now. So...
yeah, and the town centres are getting very unpleasant. You don't really want to go there. I only need to go there every so often to go to the bank, but I could go to another branch. now because they have no reason to go to Wigan. It's rubbish anyway. You've no shopping centre, but it's the collapsing of everything, and it's not as well. And I was thinking about this today. I mean, I remember for years, were not mainstream performers, but like little club acts, singers, and jobbing comedians would be performing at pubs and clubs. And back in the day, you could make a good living up in, because there was a Labour club or a Conservative club or a social club on nearly every corner. But over time, they've slowly been eradicated. And now, after COVID, that accelerated that. And now performers who I see are always putting posts about venues are closing every week. And it's we all know what they want. They want state-approved entertainment, state-approved food, state-approved living, every aspect of your life, to your finances, to your entertainment, to whatever, to your living, you whatever, it needs to be state-approved. And anything other than that, when they eventually get that, when there's no venues left for anybody to perform, and everything goes online, or whatever, and then if you want a really massive audience, you'll have to make sure whatever you do doesn't rock any boats and is very sanitized and very clean, and and so. And AI as well is doing a lot for entertainers. You know what I mean? That a lot of people are doing, but I actually think what's going to happen is, do you know Aldous Huxley, the book Brave New World? He talked about. I've only read half of it. I'll be truthful with you, but I picked what I picked out of it. He talked of there'll be two societies. He'll say there'll be the savages who will not accept the 5G controlled lifestyle, the imprisoned, surveilled cities. They will be out in the wilds, and the savages will have their own kind of world, if you will. Anybody else who wants the Wi-Fi world and everything, your Nando's and whatever, I'm just thinking top of my head, anybody who wants to live in this, what you would call the matrix, must kind of capitulate and comply to whatever it is they have to do. But there will be a division in society between the people who have become termed savages because they won't, like in the Demolition Man, they had people living under the sewers, who won't. Do you think that we could actually reach a kind of point in history where something like that would occur, or do you think there wouldn't be allowed to be any savages? Everybody will be contained. Because there's going to be a lot of people where you think, fuck this.
It depends on how many's bloody left, because there's a lot of suddenly and dying going on for some reason. People are baffled what it could be. But there again, that's another conversation. When you see these people that are just dropping on a daily basis, and the first question is, how many? And then you get people who say you're being disrespectful. Well, who was being disrespectful when I wanted to walk into a shop and they were asking me, have I been vaccinated? I'll come round for tea. Well, have you had your thingies? Well, what's that going to do with you? Well, you can't come if you've not had your thingies. We've got to have a conversation so that people can get this information. But do you know what? It was like you said before, Jim. I think there's people that you're just never going to reach. They're stuck here. You can't break through to them. You've just got to do
That's
what.
Right. I mean, if we come to another point in the road where they make these things mandatory, is there going to be a breakaway society, or there's definitely going to be a counterculture? Because where entertainment's going now, there is kind of a resurgence of an underground. There'll be underground scenes will come back. But I should imagine in every aspect of life, who rejects what society, the mainstream narrative pushes, there will be a counterculture spread across everything. You know what I mean?
But again, you hit the nail on the head. We can't do anything necessarily about that other than the bits what we do. I mean, you've gone from. I remember I can see the evolution, the growth that you've had in the last 4 years, Jim. You went from somebody who was just very angry and wanted to, just shout at everybody and shout at yourself and shout at the world. And then you've grown through that with your channel up to the point where you went to do some acting. Then you're doing your writing as well. So you're growing through all that, because once you put it down on paper, you know where that's going. It's coming out of you, and it's coming into life type thing. It's not just stuck inside you anymore. And then,
sorry, Paul.
I'm just saying, and then you go to the channel that you've got now, where it's not that you've gone serious, because you always interject humour into it, but it's not just time to just do a live and get pissed with everybody and just laugh about films and things like that anymore, because at the end of the day, for me, your soul's at stake. It's not just what your house is. People think that they paid their house off. Somebody said to me last week that they just made the final payment. At least I own my house. How do you tell them after 32 years of paying, that they still don't own their house?
No, it can be taken off them at any time. You know what I mean? But it's I created that second channel. I want to be very careful with the terms. I hate the term mental health, because it's such a bandwagon now, and you've got all these self-appointed narcissistic abuse survivor coaches, and it's usually like predatory men who want to get abused women and vulnerable women, and just use them. There's so many of these mental health coaches and stuff like that, and I just wanted to create a channel where eventually you could build a community where people could support each other. You know what I mean? Without I could never sit with somebody and go, yes, what I think is you've probably got by. I'm not a counsellor. I'm not going to like that. You know what I mean? And I don't want all everybody's shit heaping onto me. I've got enough of my own. But if you can build a channel, I mean, groups like this. I mean, you said things can't be done, but if this channel reached 100,000 subscribers and you would have a massive audience, there would be. You would probably get looped into more. You know what I mean?
You're never going to get loads of people. You just need enough with the right information to take it over that tipping point. The amount of messages that I get, there's what I did with that gyro was just one aspect of the bills of exchange. Other people have got other things that they're now coming up with evidence to do. But it's great on paper. It's got to be done now. That's why I stuck with that check, because you can't run away from it. You've issued me this. I sign and date it, give you back, it's done. That's why they never turned up, because that's how simple it would have been. So they had to leave it. Now, for me to get my remedy heard, I had to sue a £3.4 billion company on my own, Jim. It's too much to ask of one man who's seen his entire life unravel everything that he's been taught, and then have to go and find out what the truth is again. It was like everything I'd learned in this world was wrong, so I had to relearn everything what I should have been doing instead of what I have been doing, because we facilitated the situation that we're in. And now what people are going to do is they're going to argue to carry on facilitating this situation and defend the actual system that is taking everything off them. And it's sad. It's sad because it comes down to that pride thing. I was humbled, Jim. I was humbled on my bloody knees. There's no pride left in me. I don't care about being right. When it comes down to anything. But don't tell me I'm wrong without showing me where I'm wrong. And if we're looking at the same stuff and you tell me I'm wrong, you're going to have to show me in the stuff where I'm wrong, not your opinions. I want you to show me in what we're reading where I'm wrong. And if you can't do that, then you believe what you want to believe, and I'll do what I want to do as well. Because I can't be bothered arguing about anything with people anymore. People contact me, they want information. if I can help with that information, there it is, you have it for nothing. Then I get somebody will contact me and say, well, I've done this and it didn't work. And then when I get a picture of what they've sent the wrong instrument. So people are saying things that doesn't work. This does, and they've not actually done it. But on paper, it works. But that's why with a check, Jimmy, you can't go wrong. You give me a check for 100 quid, mate, and then as soon as you give it me, you say, I owe you 100 quid. I'm just going to give you your check back. I don't owe you anything. Well, that's what the utility companies were doing. There's an interesting information that was on Richard Volbes' channel talking about where these utility companies are actually using a statement of account to extend credit. So rather than pay your bill, rather than set your bill off, they're treating you as a customer and you're extending credit. So it's another strand to what they're doing in this fraud. And that needs bringing to light.
There was a company on Facebook a while back, because my friend was going to sign up to it, where they would come to your house and fit their own gas meter. And because it wasn't a registered gas meter from whoever, like Eon or whoever, apparently they were telling people, well, it's your own gas meter, you don't need, and obviously and apparently it works for a while, that done it, but then eventually what the companies will do, Eon or whoever, will go and say, well, they've got a dodgy meter in there, and we need to break in because the meter's dangerous, and they'll do things like that, won't they? So, like I said, if people don't know what they're doing and they're listening to half-baked information,
the thing is, you might get away with it for 10 years, 15 years, especially if you've given them a black eye and you put up a good fight. They won't just keep coming after you. They'll go get the easier pickings. It's what they've always done. But that gives you a chance to actually do something. But, there's people who can live like that. But when you're married with 2 kids, and every time they knock at the door, you go and hide behind the couch, people can't live like that. So when people want to stand up, it's admirable. People want to change things. But it's when they're coming out with, like, somebody who's got 160 grand equity and they want to stop paying council tax because they fund terrorism. You're not going to win with that, Jim, whether it, being it true or not. You're not going to win with it. When you go in and say, well, this only applies to commercial property, look, it's in your own paperwork, and they go, not listening, don't care. Where'd you take it? This is criminal now. Well, where do I take it? How do I get a criminal court opened? How do I do all this? There's people that said they can do it. We had somebody 10 years ago who just went to the Royal Courts of Justice and opened the court. But why isn't everybody doing that then? If we can do that, I want to know all that information. It's time that they're talking about it. Some action's got to come. We're seeing all these response groups, all these wonderful people are coming together and trying to stop the people's houses being stolen off them in a civil matter that the police are helping them with. And the police don't know what they're doing.
Do you know what? I mean, you'll remember, you're as old as me. When back in the day in the 80s, they tried to bring in the poll tax, and there was actually civil unrest. But they just renamed it the council tax. They was, all right then.
Yeah, put it back onto the property, took it off the person and put it back onto the property. It was exactly the same.
Yeah, oh, okay then.
But everybody thought they'd won. Everybody thought they'd won. Because they were taking, like, say, 4 adults in a property, they were taking 400 quid each off them. So they had to put it back onto the property, but they were still taking the same amount. Once they put it onto properties and properties were bigger, well, now all of a sudden we can charge you more. And you're not going to do anything because everybody pays tax. This is what I'm saying. We're acting commercially in a debt-based economy. And we're the creditors. So we're creating everything, we're fixing everything, we're maintaining everything, and we're paying for it 3 times. And these people are laughing at us. And then you vote somebody else in somebody else can come and laugh at us. You know, that's the whole point to voting. You're not going to get somebody in who's going to come and change something, because you've got to get through the system, and I just can't see how that system can be done unless people inside the system. And I know full well, Jim, there are good people still in this system, but they don't want to rock the boat. You mentioned it earlier. People don't want to rock the boat. Well, people are struggling to pay the bills. Well, are they going to stand up in the council and say you can't do this? Are they going to stand up in the magistrates' courts? You can't do this. Are the judges going to turn around and go, I want to be a champion for the people? You know, this is bloody. We're heading into Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, judges don't care. They're helping rip everybody off.
Do you know what I mean? Right, amongst the elites, do you not think there must be some? We can't really generalize and tear everyone with the same brush. It's like saying that particular group are all evil. Because of any group of society, that's never the case. Do you think there must be some good elites who don't want, or do you think they're all intrinsically bad?
Well, they're all linked. You know, when you've got George W. Bush, 10th cousin to King Charles, now Marilyn Monroe was cousins with the same people as well. Brad Pitt's cousins to him. So everybody that we see that's in those celebrity status, or what you said, the elites, they're all pissing in the same pot somehow, but maybe they don't all want to control everything. But it still goes back to these bloodlines. You know, the Albertini, I always get the name wrong, Alderbrini, I can't say it. But you've got the Demichis bloodlines, all these married into royalties. It's not just about Rothschild. You've got these darker bloodlines that they claim they go all the way back to Abraham. They claim that they have the right to rule.
Yeah.
There's nothing new here. But the people that are here now, they don't care about the people. They're a sovereign state, and then there's us. But we do all the work. We're just on the farm. We don't get any benefits from this. Gordon Brown sold what public gold there were. He sold it back 2002, 2003. He sold it all off, and he sold it at the cheapest price possible. So that's all sat in the Bank of England, which isn't our bank. People, local councillors to me, thought that we had all these billions of gold because it's in the Bank of England. That's not a public bank, Jim. You know that.
Right.
So we've got nothing other than the credit of the people. The system could be taken over by the people and it'd run perfectly as long as we acted right. And if the people who go and dig the roads and fit the pipes and do the maintenance, and the people look after the children, and the people teach, and people fix cars, if we still all went out and did all that, we'd just print our money from the treasury and put it out into an economy and invest back into the country. It's not difficult to change, but you have to get rid of this central banking system, a private bank printing our money, charging us for it, whilst then borrowing on our backs, buying bonds and giving them gold, and then it's wasted because we give it to the Ukraine, we give it to all these other countries, and we've got people who are dying on the streets, people who don't deserve to be there. We're going into a third world country. You can't, like you said, Jim, it's like that here, it's like that there. This is what. How do you get people to see, Jim? Because you see it. You only have to walk into town, and you see it. Everybody else is walking into town. What are they seeing? You know,
perhaps it's a case where they're so wrapped up in their own worries about paying bills or surviving. Because we have the opportunity to look deeper at things. So a lot of people are locked in on hamster wheels to their own world about, I've got to pay that debt, then I've got to go to a bank, and then, you know what I mean? So perhaps a lot of people don't see, but I didn't see it. I didn't see the breakdown of society as much since the lockdown thing. is accelerated at a staggering rate. And there's anger everywhere. Everybody's angry, and there's conflict everywhere, and there's more sirens everywhere, and people, the neighbours got the windows smashed, and you know, I mean, it's kind of like this. They've done something. I mean, I'm a big believer in like these people are they're in line with the occult. You know what I mean? And they've cast something over the planet.
You can tell it's changed. The psychological attack on the entire world is 9/11. That was pumped out 24/7, and people sat there and watched the ticker tape till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, watching the same stories, watching these planes, watching these explosions, watching these collapses. And from the first building I saw collapse, I went, that doesn't look right. That can't be right, that. How can a building be so flimsy that an aluminium plane can burn it down with just kerosene, just plain fuel? It didn't make sense. But, you know, you're obviously then called a conspiracy theorist. You're not a physicist, so you don't know what you're talking about. And you just go, well, it's common sense. 2 buildings are hit and 3 buildings collapse at free fall speed. Doesn't make sense. But from that, there's a war that happens. And we go into another thing. Then we have our own with 7/7. Now, you can pick apart both of them. There's anomalies in both of them. When you look at 7/7, for the people who were accused to get to those places and blow them up, they had to catch a certain train from Luton at 20 to 8, and that train was cancelled. That's still in the mainstream narrative now, which meant they had to catch a later train, and the explosion, they couldn't get there to do that. That's why you ended up with 3 terrorists shot dead in Canary Wharf. It was broadcast live, but nobody talks about it. Now, I always say when I did jury service, it was very simple. If you have one doubt, not guilty. So if you've got questions, you can't just say, well, that narrative's correct. But as soon as you start asking questions, you're called names, you're attacked. Now, the only bit further that you can go there, Jim, is if you make it illegal to ask questions about whatever topic it is. Whichever way it is, you're covering something up, because the truth will bloody defend itself on its own. You don't need to keep arguing and fighting about it. It'll defend itself.
Didn't the bloke am I right in thinking that there was a bloke called Rich D. Hall who really went into depth on the they took him to court recently, didn't they? And I remember it was on Granada Reports, and there's this reporter in his face saying, do you feel okay? Like, I can't remember exact words. Do you think it's okay you spreading these lies and causing pain to these families with and he was good. I think it was about the Manchester Arena thing.
Well, it was the Manchester Arena one, Richards.
Somebody took him court over it, and then there's somebody in a wheelchair saying, look, this person's in a wheelchair. Do you think this isn't real? And all this kind of shit. And
well, John Hill, who did 7/7 Ripple Effect video, he got took to court because when they did the inquest, he sent his video of 7/7 to the jurors. So they tried doing for contempt of court. He didn't get done for it, but they made his life hell because he was trying to make people aware that there are so many common sense questions. And if you can't ask common sense questions, if you've got common sense, you've got to ask, why can't I ask these common sense questions? Because if it's true, you should just be able to ask them and there's a straightforward answer. But no, you've got to be shut up. And it's, Richard brought up many questions that people don't want to talk about. He did loads of work on the Madeleine McCann stuff as well. Again, he's not somebody who says, this is what happened, that's what happened. He asks questions. Dave von Kleist, who I interviewed years ago, he's a filmmaker in America, and he did one called 9/11 in Plain Sight. And while all the other 9/11 documentaries were getting shot at, they couldn't shoot at Dave's because he didn't make any accusations. He just asked questions. Well, if you ask questions and you start shouting at people instead of answering them, you're almost answering them without answering them, aren't you? So it's about asking questions. people don't need, because I know how dangerous it is, people don't need to just go and say, I'm not paying any bills. They can start asking questions. They can start getting freedom of information stuff. Get something until you know what you're talking about. Get into small groups who want to do this without a leader who's saying, this is what we'll do. So you all come and learn together. Because if you follow a guru, if that guru loses, it doesn't matter if they're correct. If they lose, that means the person they've represented has lost, and it's their house, it's their family. It's not the person who's done it. So if you're going to do it, you'll be putting yourself on the line. You'll be putting your own family, your own house, your own property, and it'll be for the right thing. You're doing it for the right thing, to show fraud, to show that your family's been ripped off all their lives, that you work for nothing, but then you've got to take the consequences that may come until there's enough people to make that change. And until there is, we won't know. There's an analogy that I use, I forget what year it was when Ceausescu was overthrown in Romania. It was in the 80s, I think, sometime. And nobody saw it coming. And then all of a sudden he's hanging from a lamppost with his wife. Just right out the blue. Nobody said, oh, this could be happening, that could happen. All of a sudden it was just everywhere. And that's what it's going to be like, I feel. I think somebody will just, that one last tap and it comes down. But then it's what do we do about it? But we've got to take it one step at a time, and we've got to make sure that we're all going in the right direction and leave this ego stuff behind. I don't know how else you can put it, mate, because we need people to step up. We need leaders. We need organisers. It's it's our families. It's our children. It's not about a country. It's not about this land or anything like that. It's about life. It's about life.
As well, regarding leaders, as Lao Tzu said, always choose the leader who would rather be excused, rather than people like, yes, I'll be in charge of the new world. And this is the thing, isn't it? The new world order. There's going to be one ruler of the world. Look at ancient Rome. I'm not having him as Caesar. I won't be Caesar. Let's stab him on steps. So it's an impossible situation, because how's he king of the world? I'm not having. I'm the king of the world, and they'll be killing each other every week, and there will be, like any ancient kind of society, there's wars and egos and saying like, well, I don't agree with what they're doing, and we want to do this better, and you know what I mean? It's in kind of an impossible state, really, isn't it?
Well, there's a famous example with Solomon. Solomon was the wisest man ever. When he started off really well, he was dedicated to God and everything. But as being king and keeping peace, back in the day, politics was to marry into certain powerful families as allies and bringing everybody on board. And he started to marry women who were pagan, and he ended up building temples to Baal and stuff like that. Wow. So he started to fall apart, and in the end, he was far away from God. So somebody who was a favourite of God, who God loved, who he didn't ask for wealth, he didn't ask for power, he asked for wisdom. But his wisdom was so complicated to sort the kingdom out into 12 sectors with governors and stuff like that. Nobody had done this before. So Solomon's doing all this, but then with all that power and wealth came all that temptation. And he was a man. He was a man at the end of the day. And he was tempted and he fell. And there was, if you look at Solomon's Lamentations, he said, I have everything and I'm so unhappy. I have everything. There's nothing I can't have. There's nothing I haven't tried. And I'm so unfulfilled.
It's very interesting you say about Solomon's temple and the worship of Baal, because most Masonic temples are based on Solomon's temple. So is that why?
Yeah. The keys of Solomon and Freemasonry is Kabbalistic. It's Jewish mysticism. Freemasons is just based on Jewish mysticism, and they worship Lucifer. The Bible, they worship Lucifer, the light bringer. But you don't have to worship that, do you? No, you can put your hand on the ordinary Bible. We'll take your fees every year, and we'll let you get up to 33 degrees. No worries. Of course you can. We'll do good things for charities in your name. Of course. You just keep giving us your money. But you don't get to know the full secrets. They even joke amongst themselves that these people who pay, who come to learn the secrets, and we give them nothing secrets. And it's only the people that are actually of use to them, who can benefit them, who can take them further in whatever direction, that would be selected. And then you're going to get offers. And depending on the offer, I heard things from like being asked to spit on the cross. And if you refuse, they say, thank you for that, congratulate you. But you never go where they wanted you to. But if they see that you're willing to do anything, are you going to sell your mum to do this? If they see that you'll do that, they're more than happy for that. Because,
do you know what's an interesting thing? As the social clubs are suffering the same fate, Freemasonry isn't getting the numbers as it wants on the lower level. So
they're doing a lot of advertising, aren't they? My
thinking of this is perhaps they don't want the layman in it. They don't want Joe the engineer who wants an engineering factory anymore. They just want to collapse it at the lower levels and just keep it bloodline. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking, but then again, they need that income, that revenue stream, because it is at the lower levels is about generating revenue. The amount of money they take off them,
Well, if you look at it another way, Jim, whether the people who are going to the lodge believe it or not, once they've gone through that third degree, they've already set up their pathway. So no matter whether they stop going to Freemasonry, if they don't, absolutely get deliverance from that stuff, because there's a lot of generational curses that you are dipping your toe into as you go through these rituals. They're not designed just to have a laugh about. It might sound funny having an hood over your head and a noose round your neck with your left breast exposed and your pants leg up. But there's a reason behind that. It's all about what energies are going to be put into this. The New Age stuff, they always turn that into energies. That's why I understood New Age as a plausible thing when I was going into mediumship and stuff like that. But it's not life-changing. It's no different to all the other stuff, Jim. And like the mainstream religions now, 700 Christian religions, they all believe different things, and the Catholics now say all religions go to heaven. So the Pope's now thrown the Bible out because it's not scriptural. He just says you can't do it using Roman Catholic ritual. So if you can marry same-sex marriages, and all religions go to heaven, but you can't use our rituals. But it doesn't make sense, that. So it's like, because people don't see it and they just accept the programming, it's like they've just blipped over that, and then all of a sudden he's just going to say, hey, we're all together, we all love each other, let's call this religions whatever. It's not conspiracy theory. It's always been a conspiracy to pull everybody together. If you remember Babel, everybody spoke the same language. Everybody was building this tower, and everybody could do with people. God said they can do almost anything that they want to. Let's go down and confuse the language. And then they couldn't communicate, so they had to spread out. That's why God wanted them to spread out, because if they congregated, people take over power, corruption comes in, and all of a sudden you're back to square one, where you're worshipping Baal and you're having a kid so you can sacrifice it before you start a family, and you've honoured the gods. It's a very strange world. It looks like somebody's been dug up, mate, here.
Yeah.
Are you with us?
Depends. I look a bit funny, don't I?
Purple Haze.
Are you in this realm?
I think so. I don't
You
look like it though. It looks like a bit foggy.
You do look a bit foggy, mate, but I don't know if it's your eyes.
Could be. Don't know.
Have you listened to any of the first half?
Couple of bits and bats here
Has
and
he-
there. I've just been
Has
on.
he any input?
Right. Well, I was thinking actually when you were talking, because obviously Jimmy's not Alex, but he is a creative like I am, and sometimes I worry about being like a broken record, but then in other ways I don't mind too much. So I was thinking about the play Waiting for Godot, which was produced by Samuel Beckett, 1953, and of course it's just post Second World War piece, and it's considered to be an example of an existentialist play in two acts basically, and they're very very similar, but subtly different in certain ways, but both totally absurd. And of course it's a play on waiting for God, so Godot is Godot, so it's thinly veiled. And obviously what it's doing in some ways, it's not mocking, but it's looking at the return of Christ question and saying, yeah, another day, another dollar. We keep waiting, we keep waiting, we keep waiting. A lot of people could take offense. So many Christian believers could think it's like an attack, like Monty Python and The Life of Brian. Many Christians were in total outrage, thinking it was a sacrilegious attack on Jesus, but really it was just mocking certain of the practices and mindsets of Christians. So I don't see it.
People, wasn't it?
Say again.
It was mocking what normal people would be like. It's like when they're over far away on that other hill, and he said, "What did he say?" He said, "Blessed are the Greek." The Greek? What have the Greeks got to do with this? That was mocking how people are, because I can imagine I've been in crowds where you hear things go on like that. So I get what you're doing there, mate.
Well, in Waiting for Godot, of course, a lot of people immediately think it would fulfill that thing that was said in the New Testament in Paul's writings. Beware that in the last time mockers will come, saying, where is this return that was spoken of? So a lot of people think it's about that, but I think it's a creative way of looking at a position in the world post Second World War, where, well, actually, two massive world wars with a massive impact. Look at rationing, look at people's quality of life, look at all the changes. It was monumental. And so people were in a lot of crisis. It was around the era where this God is dead idea started to circulate. That I suppose had first been seeded in Friedrich Nietzsche and taken time to come to fruition. But what came after the two great wars was a massive loss of hope. A lot of the traditional beliefs, even in the West, that had been pretty much sacrosanct, were destroyed. Because when you're faced with death on that scale, it's obviously very difficult for one mind to take in. So what started to happen was there was this increased erosion of ideas about belief about some cosmic external savior force, and people had decisions to make about that. And existentialism was born as a philosophy, saying that if you have an external locus of control for your meaning, and that's taken away, then unfortunately you'll be somewhat derelict or bereft. So what you have to do is create your own meaning. So existentialism would say things are inherently meaningless, and we have to generate meaning in order to find meaning. Otherwise, we'll be passive passengers. So my take on that would be, many of us have perhaps noticed the spiritual implications of Waiting for Godot, but not some of the cultural and social implications, that we've been totally disempowered and been rendered so passive. And so I'll come now full circle to the point I made at the beginning about Jimmy and myself being creatives. When even Beckett himself is using a creative medium by which to address some cultural ennui after the Second World War, in the light of all the psychological detritus I was just talking about. So he was able to produce a cultural artifact that really expressed the sentiment of the time in the West. So it's really powerful potential as a creative. And many people who are creatives don't get their work seen. So we're not doing it for fame. But the more people who are doing creative things, expressing themselves creatively, they're more likely to have an expansive vision of life and be more able to live in the world as it is by deploying their imagination. So they'll not like be sterile in the same way that you can imagine a lot of people can get sterile when they get passive, and then they become hopeless, and then it affects your mental health. Then you've not got a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And this is one of the themes that we've been looking at recurrently, the impact on us as individuals. It's not just about truth and faith. It's about those issues about our mental health or our basic well-being, things that happen every day in our personal lives and our societies. So it's a pretty big deal. So I think positive mental health, resilience, all the factors, we need to look, and sometimes it's about looking at damage and pain and things that were done to you on a fairly local level, a family level, at school, when you say you were bullied. But sometimes you've got to look at it at a deeper level as well. So, yeah, that'd just be my 10 penneth as a starter for 10, as Bamber Gascoigne used to say.
You know what, though? I'm not on your levels of intellect, Alex, but if you can throw yourself into some creative project, it will anchor you in purpose. If you're anchored in purpose, I mean, writing for anyone is a fantastic medium, because if you can create something, it's almost like you can transfer. This year was the most enjoyable time when I was immersed in writing, and whatever the world's burning outside your window and you're completely immersed for that time, and then it brings you back to the moment. It brings you back to the point, and you're not writing this for an Academy Award or to win the TV Times Award or whatever. You're writing this for the sake of writing it because you're enjoying it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be writing. It could be anything that you do, and you put yourself in completely, and it anchors you. Because, like I said, once you get up in the morning, what am I going to do today? Well, I'll scroll on my phone for 12 hours, and then I'll go shop and get some cigs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a surefire way to fall off the rails. And then you'll put the news on, and then you go, gas prices are going up, everyone's dying, whatever, the world's burning, with World War III's round the corner. Anyway, here's a dog on a skateboard. Good night, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And then that can't. But if you're immersed in purpose, like you said, and an interesting point about Waiting for Godot, an ex-councillor who I now meet for coffee, he's a massive intellect, and he was telling me one of his friends had this theory that Step 2 and Son was actually based on Waiting for Godot. Because basically you had these two lost figures, and Harold, every episode, was kind of searching for someone. There was an episode where he'd be an actor, and he was trying desperately to escape his kind of prison of his class, and the old man was always there dragging him back, and yet these codependent figures. And although it's not 100%, and I thought that was such a fascinating analogy for that, for Waiting for Godot, that Step 2 and Son was kind of that thing,
Yeah.
Jim, did you find, as being a creative, did you find that because you just said you could see how engrossed you were when you're creating something and you're getting it out there, it's not just in your head, it's on paper and then it's created. Did you find that you was doing the creativity to be successful, and then from that success you would gain fame, or did it start to cross, if you get what I mean, where it became more about being famous rather than that, and then you've come full circle type thing? Am I making sense?
Here's the thing, there's people who'll go to acting classes because they want to be on Hollyoaks. Then you have people who have a desperate need to express themselves creatively. Now, if you're a true creative, you will be a creative. I'm over fame and fortune. It would be nice if it ever occurred, but I'll always be a creative if it's truly in you, it's a lifelong thing and it won't leave you. Now, if you say, yeah, well, I'll go to London for a year and I'll learn I'll with my band, and if we don't make it in a year, well, you're not really, your motives are all wrong. You want fame and fortune. You know, you don't want the reward of creativity. When you create something, and Alex will tell you, or anything you've done, Webby, I don't know, but it's such a rewarding. It's better than money. It's such a euphoric. And when I did that song about the jibber jab, and when you do it, you listen back. Oh, but you still as a creative, you're never completely happy with what you've done. You can always go, oh, I don't like that bit. And
you're critical, aren't you?
Once you have created something and you've put it out there, it's not really yours. Because I remember back in the day, I wrote songs and I think that's a pile of crap, and people saying that's really good, that. And you hear tales like, I think "Creep" by Radiohead, the band despised that song, but it's such a great song. So it's not theirs anymore. They've put it out there. In answer to your question, the reward should be the doing. And I thought that was a MI5 hitman on a motorbike, really. But basically, once when I was young, yeah, you want the fame and the fortune and the adulation, and it would be nice. Well, we think it would be nice, but the real reward for a true creative is the doing of the thing, and you're getting the reward is almost instantaneous. I don't know. Have you any thoughts on that, Alex?
Yeah. Definitely. It's got an intrinsic reward. I think the other facet in tandem with that is when you create something, you're birthing yourself, and so you're taking yourself outside of yourself. So you imagine all creativity, if you imagined it as the sum total of every internal impulse that you ever had to express yourself, and then the artifact or the product was that thing, that would be like your child. That would be the perfect representation of. So it's also a representation of who you see yourself being. And the interesting thing about that is it brings self-awareness in, and you can then put your self-awareness into objects and artifacts. And then when you look at worlds that get created, so Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, I'm sure she didn't think that all of the plot of the final installment when she was writing the first plot. So there's basically your characters can develop in extended creative projects as well. Whole worlds can start to emerge. Other people can start to enter into those worlds. Computer games programmers can turn these things into worlds as well. And all of a sudden, you've expanded and extended yourself as an inner subjective self out into many different worlds where you can impinge on others. So, for me, the joy should be intrinsic, because it's an opportunity to meet other people at a different level. Most people, for example, who buy a guitar, I can't quote the percentages, of buying and picking up a guitar to play other people's songs. A relatively small percentage of people are buying a guitar to write their own songs, but obviously some are. So what I would say is we need more people who it's great if anyone picks up an instrument and learns, but the next step then will be people composing their own music. Because when we compose our own music, we're not the people dancing to the tune of a drummer or somebody else who's making the music, or we're just passive, or we're just reacting to them. We ourselves, with our creative tools, can step out. And there's a lot of strategy in that. And there's something very appealing about a person who's competent at that level, creative, express themselves in that way. It's appealing. And when these very sterile oligarchs, all they can do is facsimile and copy, and that doesn't really satisfy a hungry human soul. So the more real and creative you can be, the more appealing it is. You're almost automatically gonna win over the long distance, because you'll be more authentic, more productive. You'll be living how a human being can live at full capacity. Who's not going to want to copy that, but in a good way, with their own version?
Our band never took off either, Jim.
It's a thing, but do you know what as well? I think creativity connects you to a spiritual realm. I think as well with creativity, a lot of the time, and I think Alex, you would probably agree with me on this, there's times when you write, when you're kind of like a conduit for something else. It's like the words you can do. Sometimes we're writing it. You sit in your chair. It's like, and then other days it's like automatic writing where so something's flowing through you, and you're connecting, and I think it connects you, and it's anchoring you in. I think one of the most important things I've learned. That's why I'm trying to do that other channel, is purpose is such a massive thing. If you get up every morning, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do today, I'll just doss about it living room, but if you go, I'm going to do that today, I'm going to throw myself in it, and you no matter what's going, because end of the day, we cannot control the massive shit show that is unfolding around us. There's nothing we can do about that. You can sit down and you get angry about it. You can get scared about it. You can do all you can do is kind of in a stoic way is control. Although you can't control the outer realms, you can control your perception of it, and being creative and having some purpose. It necessarily doesn't have to be writing. It could be learning an instrument. It could be going to the gym. It could be doing something that enriches you, something that you can lose yourself in, and just takes you away from the madness for a short while.
Yeah.
And you don't have to stick your head in the sand, but you need a holiday from it.
Yeah, really good points, Jimmy. And I would add a caveat that's important for creatives, because creativity generates energy, and energy will then produce products because you're directing towards a goal. The only problem is, as soon as you get a goal in view, you can become obsessive, you can become perfectionist. And a lot of creatives struggle with perfectionism. They have to start exploring what's driving them. Because you can be a very creative person with a lot of talent, but you could have a very hard internal taskmaster who's trying to crack an old nut, and he's driven for reasons that a perfectionist. You never did well at school, did you? You could have done better. Do you remember that school report you got? And all these little voices in your head are telling you and driving you. And this is one of the things where, we know we should do creativity for its own sake. It's intrinsically rewarding. But we also know sometimes another little voice is sneaked in, sort of telling us, yeah, but if you just did this, and if you broke the back of this, next thing you could be, you get some real traction. And you're still not doing it to make $1 million or whatever. But there's that little voice that says, hey, this could really get some currency. And what if you did this? Then work harder. And I can imagine with J.K. Rowling as well. They wanted to give her a 1-book contract. She struggled at the beginning. And then when she got that first one, you don't know how well developed the ideas were. But, second, third, fourth book, we'll give you a contract for 3 or 4 books. It's a different undertaking than the pressure, the commercial side of it. So even for creative, you've got to guard very zealously to ensure that you don't get corrupted by impulses that are perfectionistic or all about achieving the things for other people's reasons rather than the reward itself.
That's why I brought up about the drive and the success rate, right? Because if you look at Game of Thrones, right, that became so successful because the storyline was so creative, so interactive, and then you got up to the last bit that hadn't been written, and they wrote it, and they just ruined everything, and it was all about the money in the end, and they had to get it done quick on that budget. So from all that creativity, from a thought of a man, as like you were saying, channeling this information, that type of world could well have existed in a history that we have been hidden from. It's based a lot on the history of what we have anyway, what we know about, and the history now that we see coming out with all the the old Tartaria stuff, and we're on the brink of discoveries yet again, but there's so much stuff going on. Go on, Jim.
Just put an add-on onto the create. I think as a creative, at some point with your project, you have to realise that a great painting is never finished. You could go on with your project ad infinitum, changing that word to a point where you would become the actual thing would become insurmountable. Which I'm being honest, the second part of my book is like that. I've messed about with it, and I listen to too many people. The book I wrote is very flawed because I left school at 15. I had a basic idea of grammar. My education was zero. The book is just raw, based on life experience. So I had people telling me, "You're using too many commas. You should be using more full stops. It shows a better writer when you don't put." And so I'm like, huh? So if you read through that text, Alex, or you read through it, and it's like, oh well, it changes, and it's such a flawed thing. So I think with a writer or whatever, or a songwriter, whatever you're doing, I think although you love what you're doing, I think with each project you should employ a slight amount of detachment. Where eventually this product's going out there, are you going to sell this on? Are you going to do something with it? And people are going to do what they are with it. Because I know people who they actually become like a creative thing. Endeavor can become like a child, and you can be and I think to a certain extent it can be started dangerous because you have to let even with children, you can't keep the kid in the house. You have to let them go out into the world, and even with the creative project, you have to let it go at some point. And because if you're striving for perfection, which you can never attain in any realm, but if you were to attain perfection with whatever you're doing, where are you going to go from that? Exactly. You know what, Webby? This is the cans. It's what's that pub? The Tamar in Lee.
Tamar. It's not there anymore, mate.
It's Heron Foods now. Right? Yeah. Me and Russell Bland had our best gig there, and I wish we'd have filmed it. And it was the best I ever performed as a stand-up. I couldn't put a foot wrong. It was amazing. So we thought, what did we thought we'd do? We booked that was December. We booked another gig for the following March, and the pair of us stunk the place out. There was no magic there. The point being here, if you do reach that apex, where are you going to go from there? So I think John Lennon said about songwriting. He says, what happens if you're not happy with the song? He goes, I'll just put it out there. I'll get it right next time. And you just have to keep having that. I'm not completely happy with this, because once you reach perfection, I'm stopping now. I can't do that again. You know what I mean? And that's just my thoughts really with it. Otherwise, you like anything else, you can eat yourself up, and it can drive you mad. You know. But if you're a creative, I will just say it's a lifelong endeavor. There's no real switch off point. You know. But that sorts out the people who really need to do it for their own mind and the sanity, and the people who want to win an award at the Chat magazine, and people who want to be photographed going to Sainsbury's buying a loaf. Which there's a lot of people want to be famous, and they don't care about how they get the vehicle. They just, I'll get a job on Hollyoaks and I'll be famous, and it's soulless. And it's just, I think Alex will agree with me. I'm more interested in creating something what I think's good, rather than just being involved in some mediocre rubbish that'll buy you a big house and an Evoque.
Yeah.
That's my team. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you thought about it, actually. You probably have a view of this. You remember, so there was Harry Enfield, and then Paul Whitehouse really improved Harry Enfield, got him to raise his game by producing the Fast Show. And after that, when they came back together again, they produced some really good material. And then they produced Harry and Paul. And you could just see it with like just two blokes thinking the BBC will buy anything that's got a name attached to it. The material was woeful. It's the unfunniest thing I've ever seen. But they were trading on their reputation. And even they got to the point where they thought, we'll cash in here. And They're themselves capable of such sublime moments of height of comedy, sold out for the book.
I think as well with the Fast Show, I think there's quite a few more writers involved as well, you know, and sometimes you'll find like Richard Ashcroft with the Verve. I mean, he reached a certain level to, I'm getting rid of all these men. I think he kept all the money, and I think a lot of them are poor. But the point being, he goes, I'm going to be a solo artist now. And he did 1 or 2 albums, and he just paled into insignificance. I mean, he came back to Wigan for a nostalgia gig and all that, but you don't really hear his name anymore because people don't see the bigger picture. But what you know, in life in general, it's not all about you. Your life will be more enriched and with more ideas and other people around you. If it's just you, yeah, I want to do it. Written, starred, directed by me. I made the tea. I made the costume. Me. But if you have other people around you in your life and other ideas, and people say no, that isn't a good idea. I mean, one of the most dangerous thing you can do is surround yourself by yes men. Yeah, that's an amazing idea. That dress as an owl on a skateboard. Yeah, I like it. Do it, and then but you have tell. Then that's not for creativity. That's for life, and that's where I struggle with. Really, I'm quite insular in a way. I should have allowed more people in, but that's another story. But going back to the Harry Enfield thing, it was just them two. But if they had a lot more writers and things, and it's a thing of ego, isn't it? It's most creatives, a lot of us, if we're being truly honest, are really insecure, kind of a bit wacky people, but sometimes that gets the better of you. I just want it all to be about me. I want to, it is what it is. You've got Dr. Robert here, Elf and Freedom.
Yeah.
You're not still.
Doctor, not Rob. Not a Dr. Robert.
Who doesn't sell cannabis balm out the back of a van. 4 o'clock in the morning at McDonald's car park. 2 tubs, mate, and some beef.
Brilliant. What was I going to say? Just going back to that Fast Show, some of the funniest material I've ever seen that show produced. And it was because it was that fast, sometimes you'd just be laughing all the way through, like 2 or 3 clips. And the characters that they come up with were just brilliant, like monkfish and stuff like that. Pull your knickers up, make me a cup of tea, all that kind of stuff. Stuff that you couldn't get away with saying now.
Tommy Cockles was good.
Yeah.
It was really good. But here's one for you. Do you know, I can't name one modern comedy show, can you? Is sitcom dead? Because you had all these colourful characters like Rigsby, Steptoe, all the on the buzzes, and you know what I mean. They were dated, they were off the time, but and now everything's demographics, isn't there? You'd have to have somebody in a wheelchair and somebody who's trans and somebody identifying.
Exactly. Mate, have you seen that's mid-afternoon show called Doctors on BBC One? Have you seen how bad that's got? My mum used to watch that.
I've always kind of watched that, and it's like Casualty, isn't it? It's like I'd rather throw myself under a bus than get a part in Casualty as an actor. I just think it's the all-time low for an actor. I'm sorry that anyone disagrees. I just think it's just dire.
Honestly, mate, I think it's the last ever series after this one. And it was on the news article, I was reading it, and it's everything what you were talking about, we'll put it under the title woke, everything that you can think of that can have a box ticked, it's in every episode, every bloody episode. And anybody who questions anything about it, they're bigots. And it's like, I can't believe how blatant this programming is. I mean, who's watching this program and thinking that that's real life? Because I know people, and you know people that watch soaps, and they think it's real life. Did you see how many people voted for Deirdre Rashid to be released from prison? People think this stuff is real. This is it's serious stuff. That television in that corner, it's a a weapons patent.
Well, you know what? Once again, they've been drip feeding us stuff for years. You remember Haley Cropper was trans? They were just years and years. They've been drip feeding what they want. You know what I mean? Before they turn up the volume of what they, you know what I mean? So and they always portray these certain figures in an empathetic way. You know what I mean? But you'll feel sorry for them, and it's all. I don't watch television anymore, and I'm bored of watching films now because they're just all rubbish. I like documentaries are more interesting, and what people are doing on YouTube, like this show, is more interesting than most films getting made now. You know,
there's a lot of great information from YouTube now because there's so many people concentrating on so many different things. You've actually got experts who don't have any letters after the names, but they've done 30, 40 years of research and they're producing it on their own YouTube channel, and you're getting it for nothing. That's what you were talking about before, about creativity. The passion that these people have to go in to a certain subject and go right through to all the nuts and bolts and be able to then articulate it so everybody can understand it. You wouldn't get that mainstream. You just get, I don't know. I can't even put into words the disdain that they must feel for the general public. It's very, very strange society I find myself living in at the minute.
Once again, how Schofield and that Hugh Edwards have been given a pass. That Hugh Edwards and that Schofield have been given a pass for the behaviours, and they put a show with Philip Schofield on a desert island being depressed, but it's backfired on them because everybody just really just stuck the boot in on it.
But again, it shows the disdain for the general public. But it worked for Matt Hancock. He genocided people, went in the jungle, and people thought, "Oh, I like Matt. I bet he just had to do it. I bet he was told do it. But he didn't really want to do it." And you think, what world are we in here? And it's definitely got worse over the last 20 years, but the last 4 has very, very much changed society. Like you said, you were talking about the fellow with the blue rolled beard and his mask. There was people like, the big, like, 2-gallon, like, water jugs. They were cutting holes in them, mate, and wearing them and putting marigolds on and hazmat suits. People were photographed doing that, and I thought, it's got to be a joke.
Well,
but
you know what?
It actually went over the top, over the edge.
How many people were wearing joiners masks? Like with a vent in the nose, and there's always a gap there. But is it all right if I put my second channel in the comments section can I shout it out?
Of course you can. I think Spanner put it in, but give it to Taylor. He'll do it.
Taylor, that link there. Is there a chance you could do something with it? But yeah. What's your thoughts on the American election, Alex? Have you any thoughts?
Well, in terms of what will happen,
yeah,
I think it'll be very close. The reason I think it'll be very close is because
they're going to cheat.
Say again, Paul.
They're going to cheat.
Well, first and foremost, before all of that, politics in the West is highly polarized now between this left-right fantasy. So even if Biden had stood, they managed to keep his dementia out of the news for a long time. And we all know that without an auto cue, Kamala's rubbish. Well, when I say we all, those of us who have any kind of understanding, and those who basically just like fancy words. I mean, the lawyers, aren't they? It's slime, the good orators. So she's much more slick in presentation than Trump. Essentially, I think it's going to be very tight. I think they could probably have some kind of chimpanzee or other lower order primate running as a Democrat and it'd get in. So or potentially get in. You know, most of the Democrats would be happy if a chimp got in instead of Donald Trump. You know, that's a tragedy. And I'm not a pro-Trump here when I say this. I mean, obviously, I'd rather have Trump than Kamala Harris. At least on a superficial level, it looks like a much more obvious no-brainer choice. You never know if there's something, you know. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yesterday, I think Trump polled at 67%. Kamala Harris, after that interview that she had with, I think it was Fox TV or something, every question that she was asked, she didn't answer. She didn't answer one question. And one question was like about the illegal immigrants coming in, and her response was, well, Donald Trump's running for president. It didn't match anything. And you think, you said it'll be close. Well, if all the Americans have common sense, it should be a landslide, because remember, you've only got the two to choose. You know, one's going to shoot you in the face, one's going to stab you in the face. Which one do you want? That's what I mean. How do you change it, Alex? Because people can't see what's going on, yet they still think that repeating the same thing over and over again, the definition of insanity, expecting a different outcome. It's strange how you see how farmed we've been in this. You know, they know the herds, don't they, lad?
Yeah, well, it's pain that'll lead to change.
Webby, any chance you could put that link under the description thing at the end of the show, kind of thing?
Yeah, mate. Send it me on WhatsApp.
Well, gents, it's been emotional. I'm going watching some telly for a bit, if you don't mind. Nothing, but thank you very much.
We're winding up. We're going in 8 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't being rude. I just thought it was like an 11 o'clock job.
Well, I think me and Alex are both offended now, aren't we, Alex?
I'm sorry.
He was being
rude.
It
never offends me. It's hers to appealing. He's got good hair. So
but spend a bit of time round with him. He'll offend you at some point. He'll be upset if he doesn't. I didn't know you had dandruff.
I've got more than dandruff, pal.
So, what? Obviously, tell them about your web pages and that, Jim. But
I don't know what it's. Alex had a point then. I don't want to like the steamroller over Alex's thing.
No, I can't even remember what it were, pal.
Yeah, we won't.
Apologies, everybody. I've disrupted everything. I'm actually controlled opposition. Anyway.
Well, what's your wrap up from the conversation we've had? You see what's going around in your own town. I mean, you're obviously going to carry on doing what you're doing with your creations and that, but what would you say to people who are even thinking?
Thinking what?
Just thinking. Because everybody knows there's something not right, but...
I think about thinking. Anyway, what we need to do is create like kind of communities, that really communities where people actually physically get together or share ideas, and we're gonna need people like this. I mean, going back to what I initially said about how being self-sufficient has been bred out of us over in 2 generations, where, you know, to reiterate what I said, my father could hunt, he could gut animals, he could grow vegetables, he could build basic structures out of wood, i.e. sheds and all that. I've lost those abilities, and with every generation, people become more weak. Now, most people can't cook a meal, but they can upload a TikTok. You know, and that's where we're at now. People, one thing we need to do, no matter what, is try and get back to being self-sufficient people. Because in the next few years, it is going to be an issue on one you do. You go to Tesco's and it's shut for, you know what I mean, and no food here or whatever, or toilet roll things. But we need to create communities of people, where, you know, and perhaps towards a bartering system where people could kind of trade talents. I don't know. I don't have many answers. I just know people need to come together more in a time we live in a time that is the most divisive time in history, where there is so many subdivisions of humanity and people fighting against each other. And look what's happening, and they're just steamrolling all the plans in, while we just shout at our neighbours and shout at the LGBT, shouts at these, and they shout at the LGBT, and he shouts at him, and and that people. Is it too late? I don't know, but people need to kind of come together and kind of learn how to be self-sufficient, because that's one of the biggest stumbling block at all. But because at the moment we're just like, we have become domesticated as a species. Can you imagine us talking to our Viking ancestors? So what do you do? Do you hunt? Do you kill? Do you fight? No, I sit on couch and I upload TikToks. What? I just talking to my phone, and then I upload it, and lots of people kind of like it, and red lights come on my phone, and it makes me feel happy. And then I go on my computer, and I order me baked beans off Tesco, and a man comes round in a van and brings them to me. And you're telling your ancestors that who could gut and kill animals and fight and build shelters. Can you imagine actually speaking to one of your ancestors? They'd be like, "What, you fucking what? We died and struggled, so you could be this fucking cook." You know what I mean? Just completely reliant on the man. I think it's quite sobering when you think about it.
Well, you said earlier, Jim, about how everything they wanted it to be state-sponsored, which we now look at communism, because that's exactly what you're describing there. That's what people now say is the solution, socialism. Well, we've done this, and you were talking about our ancestors. I had uncles at Dunkirk fighting against that. Imagine what they're seeing their great-grandchildren being part of now. That's the sobering aspect of it.
Like I was reiterating, they want all the entertainment state sponsored or state approved, and state approved food, state approved medication, no holistic stuff, and that's what they want, isn't it? It's Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Here's a quick question for Alex regarding that. Alex, in the book, there was the slaves who lived in the cities and had all the luxuries as well as the oppression. And then there was the savages who rejected that life and lived down the peripheries of these cities. Do you ever envisage a time where there will be that kind of two-tier world?
World's a really big place. Technology's gone on apace. So it's not clear how far. They reckon that organic bees, even if they went extinct according to their agenda, they could have drone bees doing the same job, so that they can synthesize it. So there's some questions about the difference between the types of societies where that type of question would typically have been framed, and what it would be like in a modern, much larger, globally connected technological civilization. The need for servitude and slaves. I'm not clear. It's hard for me to envisage. In that sense, I'm not that much of a futurist in my imagination to try and imagine those scenarios of how that could pan out. You could have some very interesting scenes. I mean, The Handmaid's Tale, I'm not into any of that stuff. She's a feminist, bless her. It's an interesting story. But she speculates a little bit futuristically like that. And yeah, I mean, it is interesting to ponder, could we go into some post-apocalyptic sort of scenario, and then you're looking at things like martyrdom, and would you take servitude, and then like the mark of the beast? And there's a proverb somewhere, I can't remember where it is in the scripture in the Old Testament, it says better to be a living dog than a dead lion. So a lot of people make the choice for a dog-like status because they continue to be alive. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch unfold.
Jimmy mentioned earlier about Demolition Man. You've got Demolition Man, Running Man, you've got the Hunger Games. They've all showed us that these are the type of scenarios straight from Brave New World.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you've got 1984 as well. You know, it's not like they haven't told us what they want to do, but Bill Gates told us what he wanted to do in 2009. When I told people that, hey, that's what Bill Gates wants to do, they didn't believe you.
I need to ask you both this quickly before I depart. What's your thoughts on Elon Musk, hero or villain? I mean, on one hand, he's so anti the woke movement, and he's pro-Trump on his Twitter. He's blasting. I think the woman he was with, Grimes, the singer, one of the kids he had with her, she's put through trans treatment, whatever you call it, transition, and he's kind of like not very happy about it. And he was saying, my son's died now because she's obviously made this young lad into a girl or whatever. And he's furiously angry and anti-woke. But on the other hand, he wants to create the Neuralink and join everybody up to the internet superhighway or Skynet or whatever. So, do you think he is a villain, or
Well,
is he playing his part?
I think he's playing his part because they all want this, but they all want it for themselves, and all these bloodlines are all competing for the same thing, which is ultimate control. When you've got somebody with all that wealth and influence, they can do things that people just won't even understand it, and they're all wanting to do different things for different reasons. The Neuralink is the hive mind stuff, so everybody thinks the same, everybody does the same. It's like they've always written about it, Jim, and they've never hidden it. And that's the strange thing, because everybody can see the things that they've already put, but they can't join them together. And that's the cognitive dissonance, what you mentioned earlier. And then on top of that, now you've got the Stockholm syndrome where they're going to defend this. So I think there's no goodies. There's no goodies. They're all baddies. It's just, white hats and black hats and how it plays out. But the biblical stuff is the ones that are standing out for me. That Middle East is hotting up.
Let me just say, there's a good energy to the. When I do my live streams, for one, I get no interaction, and you come away feeling very drained. But I don't feel that. I feel quite energized in a way. So I think you've got a good community here and a good live stream. It's great, and I don't. And if I am going to have to bow out now, lads. But I've had a really good time, and thank you for having me.
Cheers, Player. Thanks for stepping in and giving us a lift, mate.
Like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. Choose your part, play it well.
Absolutely. Can I just say, Webby's going to put a link under here. It's to me a YouTube channel I'm starting, so I'd be nice if some of you could jump on it if you're not knobheads. But thanks very much, All
right, mate. God bless. I'll be in touch with you.
Thanks, Alex. See you, everybody. See you, Webby. You're gas free. Bye.
Innit? So you are a little bit back then.
Yeah.
You've been in Communicado all the week, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind.
Life's a contact sport. It's happening all the time, and you got to get your energy levels right. And sometimes you got to do stuff. Go into your cave.
Bit complicated at the minute, isn't it? Life.
More than a little bit, but we.
Well, do you want to say anything now as we go out, and I'll have a chat with you after we're done.
Yeah, I think this point before I just made that closing point on Shakespeare, all the world's a stage. In response to Jimmy, if every one of us on the planet, every single one of us, the real human being that we are, had a marionette, like a spitting image puppet, so you relate it to the Elon Musk question, and it's fashionable for people to just say, once someone gets some prominence, they're always at risk of being co-opted, but that doesn't mean that they are, and we don't really have the answers, but we always sort of tend that way. But I think it's just a hopeless path to try and speculate, because then It's like, how do you know? How do you verify statements? Or such and such has got some prominence. They've not killed him yet or silenced him. He's got to be a shill. And you think, well, if the marionette puppet on the stage that Shakespeare spoke about is engaging with other marionette puppets, if Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are all part of a big soap opera and we're watching in as well, then what we've got to look at is everyone's a character in that. And even the ones who are villains we can learn from. So at the end of the day, if we take too seriously the fact that life is life, which might seem a bit strange because it's serious, but if we take it too seriously, we can forget sometimes that everyone is just acting out a part. And even if they're a villain, there's something to learn from them. So if we just bash the villain and go, oh, look, a villain, and we feel some sort of self-righteous anger because we've identified the villain, we've wasted a lot of energy to achieve absolutely nothing. So if you don't have that reaction, you observe the villain, how the villain moves, how they operate within the piece, how the heroes or proposing heroes work, how the double agents work. Sit back, observe, learn the lessons and incorporate them. You know, sometimes I think we're quite reactionary, quite reactive, and I think media primes us to be reactive. You see it on social media. Some of the disrespect that you find in the virtual domain is different than if you're in the same room as somebody. So there's all this kind of stuff going on. So self-discipline, learning about yourself, holding back, not just being reactive. Just by being a spectator, I think you can observe a lot, even from the villains. And just hold your judgment, hold your final judgment. None of us really know. Picture's too big. Everyone thinks they know somebody who knows somebody else, who knows somebody else, who spoke to such and such. It happens all over the place. And some people, yeah, they're in the corridors of power. They do know a bit more. But we can't really verify a lot of it. So we've just got to hold our own jigsaw piece intact, not get carried away. You know, don't want to be aware with the fairies. Don't want to get paranoid. Don't want to get, you know, mentally deranged because we've generated our own psychosis under the pressure of the state of the world. So it's protecting your mental health as well. And I think sometimes a measure of detachment helps there. Not always easy, especially if they're coming for you, but that's the task.
Well, I can't see how anybody can't say they aren't coming for them. Everybody's bills have gone up, Alex. The amount of people I know who are having to sell up, downsize, or stuff like that, it's heartbreaking because I know these people have worked and grafted all the bloody lives, and it's all fraud, all based on lies, and it's nobody cares. My mate said, who still works, goes to my place where I used to work, and the calendars in the offices, when they put the calendars up, they make them themselves, and it's got signs everywhere in the office. No one cares because every time somebody comes in with a problem, they just shrug their shoulders. That's, this is how places are being managed.
Yeah.
You look at society, and it's just falling to pieces, and you've just got to hit your knees and pray, haven't you? This is all out of our hands.
Yeah.
Do
the best you can.
Right, mate.
Come back next week. Bring a friend.
Yeah. Are you going to be fully fighting fit, do you think, next week?
I can't see why not.
It's never a yes or a no, is it? Just one sec. I'll have a word with you in a sec, mate. All right, Mum.
No worries.
Oh, well, some topics that have come up there, but we still always come back to the same old things when we're talking about the communities. Mental health is a massive thing with what's going on. People know what's going on. Everything's strained and stretched. Families are being driven apart. Communities are being driven apart. When Jimmy were talking about going back to working together as communities, we were surrounded in my town with co-ops where people from local, all around would come and exchange wares and stuff like that. It was a thriving town. And just over the decades, it's just been robbed. And it's not going to get any better. But people are going to work harder thinking it is going to get better. And where's the tipping point? I know with the stuff that we did, 10 years ago, if people had gone with that gyro, we could have changed things because people had them and people just thought they were paying in slips. People weren't bothered because they could afford it, but now we struggle to get them. So remedies are being taken, so it's being left to people to decide. I'll go back to the Martin Niemöller equation. He didn't do anything because it didn't affect him. And then when it did affect him, there was nobody left. So we've got to start coming together about these things. Alex was talking about how, Jimmy again brought up how people used to be self-sufficient. This is what we're talking about with co-ops. My nans, they all grew their own stuff. They all knew how to survive. You had to in those days. But now we've got these easy times. So we're on that cycle now. The hard times created good times. Those good times were created by hard men. Well, those hard men then created those good times, and those good times create softer men. And those soft times create where we are. We're going into hard times. At some point, we've got to pull our pants up, I suppose. God willing, see you next week, guys. Thanks for everybody in the chat room. Thanks for all the great messages. And, as Jimmy said, the good vibes that are coming here. We know we're doing the right thing. God bless everybody. Good night.
Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Here's the Webster Report with Paul the Gasman Webster.